How do you see the differentiation between you and your opponents?
Well, generally, I am a proven conservative. I've been 6 years in the California State Legislature. I'm a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve. I worked in the Reagan administration as a Reagan White House appointee in the Pentagon, where I was a special assistant for foreign affairs. And on issues of the Middle East and Israel, I've been to Israel 4 times. I studied Islamic political thought at the American University in Cairo in Egypt, albeit for a semester, but I lived in Egypt and I learned about the region and the culture. And so I come to my conclusions about what's going on in the Middle East from a fair amount of on-the-ground experience. I went back to the Middle East when I worked for Cap Weinberger in the Pentagon and have studied the region fairly extensively and am concerned that Americans just don't understand what's really going on. Now, in contradistinction with, let's say, Tom Campbell. Tom Campbell was on a CODEL, a congressional delegation in Israel and to the West Bank, and he bumped his head coming out of a car and actually cut his head. And he called, or Yasser Arafat called him to express his concern. And Tom Campbell told Yasser Arafat that I'm the first American to have shed blood on the soil of your country. Now, you're not going to find me saying such a frankly controversial and I think poorly thought out statement as Tom Campbell did. Now, the difference between me and Carly Fiorina, I think, is, again, somewhat troubling for those who are concerned about the Middle East. And I'll give you 2 points. While she was CEO of Hewlett-Packard, she awarded as her Wholesaler of the Year a company called Reddington Golf, whose sole purpose was to serve as a cutout, to serve as a conduit for Hewlett-Packard products into the Islamic Republic of Iran through the island nation of Dubai. She named them her Wholesaler of the Year in 2003. Now, the other thing that I find problematic is 2 weeks after 9/11, she gave a speech praising Islam as the source where Western civilization gets its ideas of civic virtue and tolerance from. This is a historically inaccurate speech. It's historical revisionism of the worst order. It's still up on the Hewlett-Packard site. And then she largely repeated the themes in 2003 in Detroit in a speech that was translated into Arabic by the Foreign Broadcast Information Service as kind of a diplomatic sop to our Arab trading partners. I find this somewhat troubling because I'm under no illusions that Western civilization owes any debt to Islamic civilization.
And do you feel that she would continue the pandering for her own self-aggrandizement?
It's hard to tell at this point. I mean, we have a primary. She's moved to the right to kind of co-opt all of my positions, and then as soon as, if she ends up winning that primary, she's already promised to move back to the center. So I don't know. I don't know how much additional time she'll have to study Middle Eastern issues.
Now, she has a double-digit lead, as I understand,
yes,
from the latest polls. Would you consider running on an independent ticket?
No, that's a fool's errand in the state of California. I intend to win this race. We are expecting record low turnout on Tuesday, and according to my last internal poll, I was actually leading among people for whom they had absolutely positively decided for whom to vote. A slight lead, but nevertheless a lead. And so if you take out all the soft support that Carly Fiorina and Tom Campbell enjoys, and you look at this record low turnout that we're staring at, and you see my very large, enthusiastic, and well-organized volunteer base, then at the very least that tells me that we're going to vastly outperform the polls. The question is, will it be enough to win, or just merely enough to have a strong second place and have a moral victory?
And once again, what's the primary and who can vote in it?
The primary is on Tuesday, June 8th, and Republicans and declined-to-state voters can vote in the Republican primary. If you're a declined-to-state voter, you have to ask for a Republican ballot when you go to the voting place.
Can you clarify, what does that mean, a decline? I mean,
in California, that's the equivalent of an independent voter.
Anyone who isn't registered as Democrat, for instance?
It's a specific category in California. You have Republicans, you have Democrats, you have Libertarians, Green, Peace and Freedom, American Independent, and decline to state, meaning you decline to state a political preference or party preference.
And they can vote for you as a Republican?
They can vote for me in the primary, absolutely.
And when are the polls open? When are the polls open until on Tuesday?
The polls, as I recall, are open from 7 in the morning till 8 at night.